Let's look at a couple of items. And they go through a number of other short things through the chapter, but let's hit these. We did part of the chapter the other day, so we're still in 8. One of the things that you will do with arrays quite often is need to go in there and total all of the values in there, which is fairly simple to do. Similar to what you've done before, but you're working off of an array. So let me go through and show you off a logarithm up here on doing one, so that we want to go through and add up all of the elements in our array that we'll call cells. So I'm going to go ahead and declare an array that I'm calling cells. And it's going to have real numbers in it. And it's an array. And I'm going to have 10 items in it. So, declare all of those things. So I've made the array. See if I can do a assign statement to assign values in there. Sales. Go back. I think I remember the exact command. We can enter it all at one time. I think this will work. Do it on there, so I just have to set a loop up here. So I'll set a loop and just input some values here. Index. Oops. So we'll declare index. It's an integer. Loss. Let's get rid of that one. And I'll go with index. Greater than 4. If index less than 5. Assign. Sales. Index. We're just going to assign a value. Just keep it simple. Identifiers will start forward or followed by series. Algorithm's going to confuse me. There we go. Okay. Index equal index plus 1. That won't work that way. It's already boxes for me. And that was the wrong box drawn back up there. Correct. Index 0 proof 4 proof 1. That should feed that. Now we want to total the whole thing, so we're going to initially set, so I've got, all I built there initially was just where I built my array and I put a bunch of 5s in it. And actually I didn't go big enough for it. It should have been to 10, should have been to 9, not 4. All right, so now I'm going to set index back to 0. Do I need to do that? No, because I'll do it in the 4 next. So I'll set total equal to 0, which I'm going to turn around and declare it first, but I'll go ahead and do this step. Because you've got to get your total amount initialized to 0 before you do anything. I'll make it stay like it is. And then I'll build my loop down here to go through and do that. So I'm going to do a for next on it, which will actually be the same as my other one. So I want to go through all 10 elements in the array. So I'm going to start from the 0, 1 and go through the 9th one. So my variable is going to be index. Its starting value will be 0. So the first time through will be 0. And the ending value will be 9 because that's the 10th value. Stepping by 1 each time. And then over here, I will add an assign statement, and I will put total equals total plus sales index. So it's going to be a growing number on it as it goes, and when it comes out of the bottom, it should have the total in it. So then I want to tell it down here when it comes out to print the total. Now when I run it, hopefully this will run. And it did. So that we got an answer of 50 out of it because there were 10 5s we did enter it. Because initially I told it to create the array, which I called sales and said there are 10 elements in it. I created my index because that's going to change continuously. It's going to work from 0 to 9 each time through the loop. So I declared my index, and then I set up a for next loop right here. I said that it would use index as the counter on it, which would vary from 0 to 9. So that's saying the index will have the value of 0 the first time, and then it will keep counting it up through 9, and when it gets to 9, we'll do the calculation on 9, it comes back up, checks it, and increments it, and falls out because it becomes 10, 10 is greater than 9, and it falls out. But inside the loop I told it sales index equals 5, so I assigned 5 as the value for each of the 10 elements. So all of this just did building the array. Our object really was we wanted to get the total of what's inside the array, which is the bottom part of this flowchart. So again, at this point, we're going to be trying to get a total. So I declared myself a variable called total. I could call it whatever I want to call it. I set the total equal to 0 at this point because we have not totaled anything yet. So what is the total? What should the total be at this point? 0. We haven't put anything in it yet. So we'll set it to 0 because otherwise it could pick up some value already sitting out there in the memory. So we'll set it to 0. And then I set up a loop here. So I'm going to loop through the entire array. I told it again for index equals 0 to 9. Start from 0, remember the first element's the 0 element, through the 9th element, which is actually the 10th one. So while it ranges from 0 to 9, each time do total equals total plus sales parentheses index. So it's saying take the current value of total which the first time through is what, 0, and add whatever the first position is, value of sales, which was 5. So add 5 to 0, and that gave me the new total, which was 5. It then loops back up, increments indexed by 1. 1 falls in the range, that comes down, and it says, okay, take the value of total, which is now 5, and add to it the current element in the array, which was the second one, parentheses 1, which also had a value of 5, so 5 plus 5, and store the value in total, which becomes 10. It loops through there 10 times, and then it falls out. And then I told it output total. Well, when it fell out, it had done it 10 times. There were 10 5s in there. And it tells us over here that the answer it got was 50. And that will get you an accumulated total out of your array. Now, that's one of the things you will do a lot of times with arrays, is go in and get totals from the array to total up something that's in there. So you'll set up loops like that quite often, either to total them like I did right here, or even to initialize the array. In this case, I just elected to give them all the same value. I could have done that as input statements there and just said input cells, bracket, index bracket, and then input it, typed in each of the numbers I wanted to add up, would have put them all in the array, and then it would have added them all up down here. Now, prior to doing the arrays in this chapter, each time you went to do the next number, you'd lose record of the previous number. All of our numbers are still sitting there in the array as we continue on through the program here, which gives that power to it. Questions on that? So to show you a couple of examples on that, they tell you about finding the highest value in there, or the lowest value, in which case you're again going to use a loop like we did here, except for you're going to put an if there to see whether or not it's bigger than whatever. If you were doing it hunting for the highest one, you set your initial value to 0, and then you sit there and compare that value you've got out there already stored to the current array element. See if it's bigger than the one you've already got stored. If it is, change the number. If it's not, just go on and look at the next one through. So you'll set it to whatever you want to be as your initial starting spot on it. And so or set it to the first element's value out there, and then all the others compare from there, and you can figure out the highest or lowest. The lowest one's going to work just the opposite on it. The only difference is your if statement, change it from the greater than sign to the less than sign on it. To search through it, you could do the same thing. Again, build an if right here to see if the current value equals whatever the search value you're searching for. And if it is, have a true side there where you then turn on an indicator that says you did find it, and to record what the subscript number is, and then that you have on your loop right here that you'd be looping while you're within this context and not found, and that you can search through accordingly from there. All right, questions on that? Y'all get the general idea of arrays? But arrays are going to give you ability to keep a group of numbers out there, or names, and to keep them all out there active at one time and not be just limited to just a number.
You're able to, it's like a cell, you said, and it has like a list of things that
Mhm.
you know, it chooses from. How do you set like everything in that list?
That you would have to, you're gonna have, in my case here, I sat there and built a loop and just assigned everything the value of 5
Okay.
on it. You could have done an input statement there and inputted each of the items
So
there.
whenever you set the array variable to a certain
The
number-
array and the subscript on it, you're setting that element within the array to that value.
All right, so you set the array to a certain number, and then whenever you assign that number to it, it's its own like data pool. Essentially, it keeps that whatever that variable.
So it's
is.
gonna put it, because basically you've got a set of boxes out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I assign that first one, I assign it to that box, and it's going to remember that's in that first box. And if I assign the 10 to the second box, it will remember that's there. Then whenever I reference cells parentheses 0, it's going to give me that value. Cells parentheses 1 is going to give me that value. It's going to remember what's in which box of this whole thing that is cells in this case. Okay? Does that answer that?
Yeah.
And again, remember it is tables in other languages. Okay?
Currently, I'm trying to do